All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, maybe. Such a delight to be here with you. My name is Julian. My pronouns are it or they, and I am the Reaffirm project coordinator with Affirm United, Affirming Ensemble. And tonight we are going to be talking with author David Hall about his book, Authentically Me, and we are so delighted to be here with you. So I will let David introduce himself. And yeah, over to you, David.
Thank you, Julian. King Jules, we know her by them by many names, and a beautiful human being who I've enjoyed very much getting to know and working alongside. Um, so my name is Dave Hall. Um, I don't know how much to introduce of myself. I'm recently retired as of December 31st. So this is a new venture, part of the journey as well. I was for many years a health and safety and HR person, and prior to that, an insurance broker. So I've had quite a diversity as far as a professional career. I've been involved in churches ever since I was born, pretty much, from young all the way up to every kind of position you could imagine. And as you will have seen or may have read or will read, even as far as considering becoming a minister of youth and music and taking my degree in that. And for obvious reasons, God had a different journey for me. Um, yeah, so I'm now just getting back into church. I took a hiatus for obvious reasons to find who I was and to find God in me, so that I could then be the person He created me to be. So that's a little bit of my story. Some of you will say, my partner, my husband, my friend, my everything, Jim Graham is in here as well. And I'm very happy that he's here, and he's been one of the biggest supporters and encouragers in the writing of this book. And did his review and drafting of the original draft. And so, yeah, he's in part of this, the whole beginning. So I appreciate him for that. And there are a number of other people in here who have been a big influence in the writing of this book. And although I don't acknowledge you individually, I acknowledge you as family, chosen family, and I appreciate all that you've done to support. So that's it for me.
What a beautiful way to start our gathering time together. Thank you so much, David. And thanks, Jim, for being here. I've heard many good things about you. Um, to kick off our conversation, I would love for you to start, David, just by talking about why you did it, why you wrote, what drove you to share your story in such an honest and beautiful way.
Well, I've done this before, and I think the very first part of the book really kind of summarizes that. So I'm just going to read it. It's not very long. I know some of you have already read, some have just got their book. So it basically is the prologue that says, "Why am I writing this?" So it really does summarize it quite um, succinctly without me rattling on, which I can do easily. So for most of my life, I lived in silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, aching kind. The kind of silence that wraps around your truth like a vice and tells you to stay small, stay hidden, stay ashamed. It took me nearly 6 decades to find the courage to speak, to stand in the light of who I am, not just as a gay man, but as a gay man of faith. This book isn't about trying to prove anything to anyone. It isn't a theological defense or an apology. I'm not here to argue or to convince. I'm writing this book because I need to. I'm writing it to me. I'm writing it about me. I'm writing it for me. Because for too long I told myself my story didn't matter. that my truth was too complicated, too controversial, too much. But the reality is, my story is mine, and I deserve to tell it, even if no one else reads it, even if it never sits on a shelf or reaches another soul. I need these words to exist. And if by some grace it reaches someone else who has carried this same weight, who has wept the same prayers, who has tried to pray the gay away and feared the gates of heaven would be closed to them, if someone like that reads this and feels just a little less alone, a little more seen, a little more heard, then that's a beautiful bonus. But this isn't about being anyone's example. This is about being whole. So I'm putting pen to paper, not because I have arrived, but because I survived. And that finally is enough. I wouldn't add too much to that, other than to say that the journey continues. And if I'm able to share that part of my life at some point too, then I will do it simply because I've learned that my story is not mine alone.
Mhm.
It's God's story through my life and how he has shown and revealed to me who I was created to be, and that love is unconditional. And I, in the same way, want others to discover the same thing. So I tell my story because it's God's story through me.
Mm, what a beautiful way to explain that God's story through you. I think that's such a beautiful representation of what you've put together in these pages and who you are as a person. Um, so as we go through the talk tonight, I'm going to probe David to talk a little bit about a few of the chapters in the book. So if you have your copies with you, I will encourage you to flip along. And if you don't have yours yet, not a worry. Again, you will be receiving yours soon. I'm wondering, David, if we can start with something that I think many queer, many LGBTQIA plus individuals have sort of wrestled with in their life. And that's sort of how you start your book is with self-homophobia. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that for a moment. I know in my own world, I've experienced that a lot. In my transition, I had a lot of transphobia that I inflicted on myself. So I'm wondering if you'd like to start there.
Uh, yeah. I always have to have a second to collect my thoughts. Um, my self homophobia really came by my beginning to believe what I was being told about who I was based on a very narrow conservative evangelical view of God and sexuality. And when I didn't fit that, the fear of losing family, church, the fear of living eternally without God, burning in hell, um, scared and feared me enough that I started to question who I was, even though I knew something quite different. And the more that I adopted, the more that I allowed that to permeate those teachings, that narrow view, the more I became hateful towards myself, hateful towards other queer people, which turned into homophobia. Um, Anything that had to do with being gay um, did get to the point where it would repulse me, where I would feel disgusted by it. Seeing anything in media at that time in my life, very limited, but whatever I did see um, made me judgmental. of what was being portrayed, and therefore becoming more and more judgmental of myself and of the feelings that I was having as a gay man. And so it got to the point that I believed it so, excuse me, I believed it so much so that I felt my life wasn't worth living. Um, and that if God didn't see fit to remove it from me, then I wasn't fit to be in heaven. Um, I took on and blamed myself for being gay, for beginning to believe what a lot of people told me, that I was weak, that I didn't have enough faith in God, that I was being too influenced by the world around me. And I began to believe that, to the point that I did attempt to take my life. If I wasn't good enough for this world, then I wasn't good enough for heaven. So I became that self-hatred and self-homophobia.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that, David. One of the one of the quotes in the first couple chapters of the book, I think that really resonated with me, relating to what you're saying, is the the cry you have in the end of the third chapter. God, why aren't you answering my prayers? Do you even exist? Where are you? What's
Yeah.
going on here? Please help. Um, and I think that's echoed in the story you just shared. And yes, somebody in the chat is even saying, wanting to give you a giant hug. And I think, what you're saying really resonates and is really a powerful experience to have lived through and to be able to talk about in the past tense. Um, there's a part of me that's wondering, how does it feel to speak about that time of your life and share it so openly?
It's still painful.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also made me realize that where I am now in my life, accepting myself as a gay Christian man, a man of faith, um, that it doesn't hold the same um, influence or impact in my life. Um, and yet at the same time, I realize that any experience I've had in my life, whether positive or good, has made me who I am today. Um, and the negative things that had such a traumatic impact on my life, I often say to people, I still see them. They're on the shelf here over to the side. I know that they're part of who I am, but I don't open that book anymore, and I don't read it, and I don't allow it to influence my life anymore. And the positive things that are um, enriching my life and helping me to be stronger in my faith and as a gay man are the books I keep opening and
Mhm.
rereading, um, and acknowledging, as I said, everything I've gone through has made me who I am today, has influenced how I think. The curiosity I now have as to why I believed that and now I believe this. Um, yeah, it just makes my life worth living.
Well, I will say I'm thankful that you're here, David, and that you are presenting us all with such an opportunity to connect with you, and your story.
Thanks.
It's really a gift. Yeah.
Thank you.
Um, I I'm curious next about um, something that you write about the the shift, the return of presence, you put it, the return of a still small voice, the same God you prayed to as a child. Um, I'm curious what that was like for you to have that presence return in your life after such intense, as you said, self-homophobia, self-hatred. Um, what was that like?
I think the biggest thing that I learned is that voice was always there and never not a part of who I am.
Mhm.
It's I wasn't listening to that voice. I was listening to the voices that were um, the ones that I wanted to hear because I didn't have self-worth. And most of those voices were from outside of my being. Um, when I came out in January 1st, 2016, I just said, I'm not listening to those voices anymore, basically, is what happened. And I decided I was going to live authentically who I was, a gay man. And if I lost family, if I lost my work, if I lost church, whatever, that didn't matter. It was more important for me to be who I was and to honor who God had created me to be. And in doing that, that still small voice um, became, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Audible. Like I could hear it rather than it being kind of a whisper back here. It was more like present. It was like here. It was like God saying, I've always been here. I've always been talking to you. You just haven't listened. And I'm glad you are now because I have so much in store for you. I'm going to blow your socks off. And and he has. I'm not saying that I sometimes squelch that small voice because I allow outside voices or other people's voices to be heard louder than what the spirit is telling me, and that's how I identify that small voice is God's spirit within me. Sometimes I allow those outside voices to become much louder, and I have to learn to many times just stop and take a deep breath and just ask for God to to come through clearer and to stop the swirl in my head. One of the reasons I wrote the book, as I've mentioned, um, until I wrote all this down and put it in a book form, which was for me very cathartic exercise. It freed up more space to allow for me to see and to hear more of what was around me. And until I actually got all that out of my head, I couldn't do that. And so I'm a big encourager of people when you feel like you've got something to write, even if it's not for anybody else, if it's just for you, write it as it comes out. Don't try to make it sound good or edit it or anything. Just write it. Because for me, I find by doing that, getting it out of my head, like I said, allows me to see other things more clearly, to hear other things that are important for me to know about myself and my surrounding, about my partner. It just makes me more in tune with who God created me to be, and in the moment. Um, that's another thing is listening for God's voice, for the Spirit's voice in each moment, rather than always thinking about the past or planning too much about the future or worrying about it. I try to just live in the moment. And that's where that still small voice has become clearer and clearer. Now that I've put those other voices of the way I was raised and taught to believe with certainty, um, that certainty didn't allow me to discover the vastness of God.
Mm.
It really limited my ability to understand the divine by believing everything was already written and that's all I needed to believe. I missed out on so much more, the vastness of God in creation and other people, um, that I've learned to take the blinders off to listen to those voices.
Hmm. That's so beautiful. And that really resonates with me as well. Once I accepted my own transness and started exploring that, I was like, whoa, God is everywhere. God is all of this. God is the relationships I have. God is the hormones that I take. God is the discovery journey that I've been on to find myself. And that's precisely what you're getting at here.
God's in the snow, even though you've had to shovel it 3 times today. God's still there.
Mhm. And in the salt rock that somehow will not leave my shoe.
Exactly. Excuse me.
Um, I'm wondering, David, if you would like to talk about the LGBTQ plus Christian retreat in April of 2016.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to back up just a little bit, and I'm telling some of the story that's already in the book. So I will try
Sure.
not to get into too much detail for those who already know it, or those who have read it, or those who haven't yet. Um, but in January 1st, 2016, after some words from my daughters and friends of my wife, who had told them before she passed away, to make sure that I lived the life that I was supposed to be living. That really helped to set me free. And so January 1st, 2016, I just said, that's it. I'm going to find God. I'm going to find myself. I'm going to find out who I am. Um, and what's the word I'm looking for? Foster or, bring that to the fore. I lost 65 pounds in 4 months. I went off all the meds I had been on for 15, 20 years for migraines, backaches, um, other depression, other matters as well as health. I started eating healthier, sleeping better, um, having good positive self-talk
Mm.
instead of negative talk. In other words, replacing all that I've been told was bad about myself with all that was good about myself. Um, I started power walking pretty much every single day. I was up at one point to 2.5 hours of power walking before I went to work in the morning. And it was such a freeing, beautiful time to be out. It was early, it'd be 5 in the morning sometimes. But nobody else was up and around, and I just found it was me and God power walking.
Mm.
Um, so I really enjoyed that. So I went to Hawaii to visit a friend of mine that from my youth I hadn't seen in many, many years. Told him I was gay, and he went, "Oh, we knew about that when you were in youth group." And I was like, "It would have been nice if you told me." Um, anyway, shortly after the day I got back from that, I went to a generous space retreat up in Rama at Geneva Park YMCA, and I was playing piano, practicing because I was going to be part of the worship for that weekend. I had gone there simply as a retreat for my own spiritual growth and connection with God and with other queer people who also were um, questioning their faith or firm about their faith or had no faith. That was the beauty of this group. Everybody wanted to be there because it was community and you were accepted no matter where you were at. Um, and I finished playing piano and I went to pick up my books and I get emotional now. Um, this man came across from the other side of the room and had been sitting there listening to me playing and introduced himself as Jim. Said that he hadn't been planning to come up until the next day, but for some reason things didn't work out and his other plans fell through, so he came early. And my immediate thing was, God, could this be?
Mhm.
um, and I didn't hear any voice at that point, other than our talking. And we went off to mealtime, and we were laughing and just enjoying each other's company. And a couple came up behind us and said, "Hey, how long have you guys been together?" And we said, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And they were astounded. They thought we had been together for much longer. And that really affirmed for me in that moment that I was where God wanted me to be.
Mm.
And it's just grown from there. So that's what that weekend was like. Don't ask me what the rest of it was like. I don't really remember, to be honest. Um, we had some beautiful walks and early morning talks, and that was a beautiful thing. And like I said, it just made me realize I was where God wanted me to be in that moment. So I'm very grateful for that, and for Jim.
So, so beautiful.
My friend River. I'm not crying. My eyes are just sweaty. Love you both, fellas.
I think just
Thank you.
lots of sweaty eyes in the house tonight.
Well, thank you.
I'm curious, David, about you were just mentioning you're playing the piano. Um, Dennis is asking for Jim's side of the story. Perhaps that comes later. I'm curious about your connection to music and how music has perhaps aided your journey or your connection to God, and what that's like for you. Music is a very, very, very profound and powerful uh, force. So I'm really curious about your connection with that.
Yeah, music has been part of my life right from very young. Um, right from grade one, grade two, I was part of a children's choir at the church I was going to when we lived in Fredericton, New Brunswick. There were 63 of us in that were from grades one to six. It was a huge influence in my life. Um, I ended up playing handbell choir there as well. Unfortunately, fortunately, I'll leave that up to uh, you to decide in me telling my story. We moved. Um, oh, I should say I started taking piano in grade three. Um, at boarders in our basement that were from Teachers College, and they were a big influence on me, just like really learning to love to play the piano and to sing. They did some um cute songs, I would say now, uh, that just helped me to learn that music is for everybody. Um, and somebody's mentioning they play organ all the time. Organ was a huge influence on me in the church that I grew up in. I loved it, especially Christmas. We would have children's choirs from all the different churches come and sing in the balcony all the way around, up top, a cappella, sometimes just the individual choirs would sing. Yeah, that I felt the most. I would say the closest to God when I was involved in music, particularly in the church. Um, so I took music and involved in it all the way up through into college, where I took a bachelor's degree, as some of you will see, in vocal, piano, and choral conducting, with my hopes of being a minister of youth and music. Um, During that time, I was discovered by some of the people in the church I was interning in that I was gay, and that ended that side of my life. As far as pursuing it as a career, I continued after that to be very much involved in music through the church, uh, all the way up until a few years ago. And music, when I'm playing, is my cathartic exercise. It's my place of calm. It's my place of connection with God. I feel I feel the warmth and I feel the rhythm of God when I'm playing music and when I was leading and when I was singing. Um, and I still find that very much now. It's God's voice to me a lot of times. And when I'm having a very rough day or I'm feeling overwhelmed by whatever the circumstances are, playing piano right now is my biggest thing. I will sit down and sometimes play for an hour or two. Um, I don't play anymore for others, unfortunately, because my hearing is taking a sharp turn. But that hasn't lessened the impact that music has in my life. And yeah, I love going to Niagara Chorus, Niagara Symphony. I love the richness of the music, the harmonies, the melodies. It just makes me feel like I'm in the presence of God when I hear music. So yeah, it's a huge influence in my life, and probably the biggest thing that has kept me, I don't like using the word sane, but probably has kept me the most connected to myself because I find God in the music. And like I said in here, um, I kind of look at the way my life has happened as God's writing his music through me. And I feel like he's still writing music for me to continue to play, yet to be. Um, yeah, God's melody is still being written in my life.
I'm seeing a lot of nods in the room. Music and the connection to God is so powerful, and your words, David, resonate much like music does. So thank you for sharing all of that. Um, my introduction to playing music was my great grandmother teaching me to play on an organ that we had in the front room of our house. So I I'm really feeling a lot of picking up what you're putting down here. Um, as a summer camp kid, I would love to hear a little bit about Green Lake.
Sure. What would you like to know? Um, the part I relate in the book is the most I remember about it.
Hmm.
It was it was right around the time that I was beginning to realize that I was different from other boys. And I felt, hmm, how do I say it? I felt a little unsure of who God was um or who he was in my life at that point.
Hmm.
And then I met this missionary who was there speaking. I I say he was in his 90s. He may have not been that old, but when you're, like 10 or 11.
Everybody's
Anyway,
ancient when you're that
yeah,
old.
and everybody's ancient. Now I'm ancient, so I don't know. Anyway, it's all relative. But I
Hmm.
just found he had a very kind and understanding, and the way he spoke sounded like he was speaking to me. Um, and so that when he asked if we wanted to know God more, that's when I remember saying to him, yeah, like I want Jesus to be part of my life. I want God to be part of my life. Um, I remember the cabin. I remember kneeling. Um, I remember being connected to nature. Nature's a big part of my life too. But I mostly remember him. And I think because of the description I had of Jesus, I felt like he was Jesus in some ways, just
Mm.
because of his gentle, kind, compassionate way of presenting the message and connecting with us as young kids, even though there was a huge age difference. Well, like I said, I think a huge age
Huge.
difference. Uh, yeah, I think that's about all I can really say about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
a
and I
good
think
part of my
it's
life.
a beautiful snippet of, what it means to have leadership that is gentle and kind and that listens and holds that space for young people, especially, but in our communities, how important it is to have leadership that um, hold space for people to feel seen and feel heard and connect to God and the Spirit. I think your story about this leader, this missionary, really, really speaks to the importance of that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Now, as we are turning uh, continually in the book, there are a number of chapters in the second half that, pardon my cat. There are a number of chapters in the second half that are letters that you wrote. Letters from the Edge of Faith, they're titled. And I'm wondering if you'd speak a little bit to what these letters are and what they mean, what they meant for you when you wrote them, and what they mean for you now on the other side.
Um, a number of the letters, in fact, the majority, I would say, have never been sent.
Hmm.
They were my way of, as I've said before, healing. They were my way of releasing that part of my life. They were my way of stepping into a future that had something better in store for me. Um, yeah, I don't think I really sought resolution by writing them. It was just one of the steps I needed to take in my journey to finding who God was in my life. Um, yeah, I still ponder on them once in a while and read them. Um, and have thought about the ones I haven't mailed about mailing them because not because I want to change anybody's mind, not because I want to say I'm better,
Mhm.
um, but more so that others know the impact that they have on people's lives. Sometimes for the good, sometimes not for the good.
Mhm.
Um, and I really think that if people are open, and I try to be, I'm still working on that, open to hearing what other people have to say about their life and how I've impacted their life and vice versa, that we can only enrich each other's lives. And by doing it, I've learned how much sacredness and truth lies within other people's stories
Mhm.
and in my own. Like I've learned a lot about myself just by writing about myself. Um, a little scary sometimes. um, but like I said when I read the first part of the book, it needs to be written.
Mhm.
And I really think that if some if something is that strong on my heart and on anybody's heart, it needs to be written, like I said, not necessarily for anybody else, but for yourself, because it helped to clarify what it was that I wanted to see changed or what I wanted to see to grow from what I had experienced. And not all of what I experienced, and I hope it comes through in the letter. Not everything that I experienced in those letters was negative. Much of it was very enriching, but it wasn't. It was what I needed at the time. I believe now, and what God wanted me to know as I started to become more authentically myself of where I had come from and where I was going, and to see how much He had always been there in it,
Mm-hmm.
even in the hard times that I thought He was not there. And I got angry at God. There's many times I, excuse my language, told Him, go.
Yeah.
Um, and then something small would happen, and I would be like, "Oh, you are there." But like I had said before, I wasn't listening for the voice, and so I was missing out on a lot of stuff. So by writing these letters from the edge, from that period in my life, helped me to make steps forward that helped me to see and to hear that God's always been there and God's that much more present in my life now because I've written these things. I've expressed um, the shame and the guilt that I felt and realized that it was more put on me than what God wanted me to be carrying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I said, it just helped to take swirl out of my head and give me more clarity and to hear God's voice better. And so that's why I wrote most of those. Um, I think the one that has the biggest impact on me was actually the one that I wrote to my pastor. Um, I did write it to him. I did send it to him. I didn't really get much of a response, other than I hate. I I bring this up and it just makes me cringe. After he had received it, we had coffee together, and his only comment was to me was, "I'm concerned for your purity." I just about fell off the seat. That was the last time I talked to him. Um, it felt to me like he hadn't even really read what I had sent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in some ways, that's still happening. Oh, I could rattle on too much here. It still happens and it will happen in life. Well, I can tell my story and people will not hear what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they will take it as a judgment, as a criticism of them. And that's not why I write. I write just to say what my journey has been and hope it God has seen through it and helps other people to live not a pure life, but a life that is closer to what He wants for them. Um, I really feel like even with all the things that I'm still going through in my life, that I lost my train of thought. Happens once in a while. Yeah, it may come to me. Sorry about that, folks. I
Happens.
sometimes get running ahead of my thoughts and then I lose what I was trying to say. So, um,
I say
yeah,
sometimes I start a sentence and, the train leaves the station without me being on it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. The engine takes off and leaves the cars behind. So, um, yeah, sorry. It may come to me. I may just jump back in with that. But yeah, the biggest thing with writing those was not to convince or to change anybody's mind, just to simply to state my journey and let them know that God's working in my life. I've not abandoned God. God's not abandoned me. God never abandoned me. Um, And so I find in writing these letters um, helps me to move forward.
A personal curiosity of mine is if you were to write a letter or two today, who would they be for?
Um,
I have a couple of really angry letters written to J.K. Rowling that I probably will never send, but you know.
um, wow. There's a lot going on in my life, in Jim and my life right now. Our focus is very much away from where I would like it to be, unfortunately.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think I have to leave it at that. Um, it's a
okay.
lot of family stuff right now.
Yeah.
Um, but it hasn't stopped me from, like I was sharing with you before we got going, I've already outlaid 18 chapters of another book already. So God's still working, still like I said, writing melody, writing my journey. He's writing each of your journeys, even if you feel like it's stagnant and you've stopped or something. Um, tell God that. Tell him I feel like I'm not going anywhere. What's going on? Like, be honest.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you'd be surprised with the answers you get.
Hmm. I completely agree with that. I have had many of the, I like to call them, shake your fist at the sky kind of
Mhm.
moments, where you're like, what's going on here? I would love something different. And then all of a sudden, so many things in my world are shifting. And you get what you ask for, whether you're entirely prepared for it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can appreciate the honesty of your sharing both with us and with God, and where that's brought you, um, and how lucky we are to be able to hear it from you.
thank you.
Um, I'd like to read maybe a sentence or two from one of the final chapters in the book, and I'll
Okay.
ask you to maybe provide a little bit of reflection, and then we'll open the floor to questions and comments for those in the room. Um, but there's a couple of these lines that really have stood out to me, so I would like to read them. Coming out was not an act of rebellion, it was an act of resurrection. I was reclaiming the parts of me that had been buried alive, and in doing so, I discovered not just truth, but love. Deep, real, healing love. I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, that scared boy in the pew, anxious teen in the church retreat, the lonely adult praying to be fixed, that it gets better, that one day he would no longer be afraid of who he is, that love would find him and it would be holy, that God was never ashamed of him. Maybe it's enough that I know that now.
I'm going to apologize. Our internet cut out just as you started reading.
Not a worry, David. Here we are.
What page where did you read from? Sorry.
I read coming out is not an act of rebellion, but an act of resurrection. And then your wish that you could go back and speak to your younger self, the scared boy in the pew, the anxious teen in the church retreat, the lonely adult praying to be fixed, that it gets better. Maybe it's enough that you know that now. Those words really struck me, and I've reread them quite a number of times. And so I wanted to hold those, and um, yeah, I wondered if you have any reflections about what it means to you now to know these truths and to be the David Hall that we know and love here today?
Um, Thank you for the sweet words. Um, I, I, I might say that I think there's a little bit of rebellious spirit. Uh, Not intentional, but as a matter of challenge myself to move forward. So I rebel a little bit against some of what I see in myself and what others bring to my attention. Um, my husband Jim's a big helper with that one. I love that he challenges me. It's very uncomfortable. um, but in the long run, I realize how much I need that challenge. I need to rebel against the old in order to see the new and to move forward. Um, yeah, I think even though it talks about going back to seeing myself as a younger person, as a youth, or that, I also sometimes think I need to go back and just see myself as an adult at where I am right now,
Mm,
and challenge and resurrect myself from even the small stuff, which sometimes can fester and become bigger if you're not dealing with it as it comes along. Um, and I think that was probably some of the reason why it took me so long to get to where I was. I wasn't addressing the small things as they came. I allowed them to fester and become bigger. Um, One of the biggest ones for me, and I see some people are asking questions. Some of the biggest things for me, I believe I say in the book somewhere that my marriage to my wife should never have happened.
mm,
I don't regret that it happened, but it really should never have happened. And if I had the opportunity to go back, I would help her to find somebody who really could love her the way that I couldn't,
mm,
because I still have that much love and respect for her, that I want the best for her. And so looking back at life for me, has helped me to see where I relied maybe too much on myself and didn't rely enough on God and others to help me to move forward. So
mm,
that would be part of what I want to tell myself when I was younger, tell myself as an younger adult, before I became senior, is to, yeah, learn, listen to the small voice, address things as they come up and don't let them fester to the point
mm,
that they impact your life, to not be able to see the abundance that God wants to give you.
mm. Thank you, David. Ruth has noted in the chat, we do love your beautiful rebellion. And Peter says, bottom of page 46 is a line that he loved, a bridge between who I had been told to be and who I was created to be. And finding that balance, I think, is what you're speaking to now, David. Thank you. Michelle, you've had your hand raised.
Patiently.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I would have an opportunity, David, to um, say hi and just say how profoundly moved I've been by your book. I'm up to the second last chapter, and right from the beginning, I was just really, really touched. And many times throughout the book, I had tears along the way. Um, I just want to say how much I appreciate your great candor, your vulnerability, your courage, your strength, in sharing your story. Um, I'm blown away. From the first time I met you, David, on a Zoom call, we've never actually met in person. Whenever the first time I met you online, you referred to your history, and I just sensed your great freedom and your vibrancy and your life energy. And I thought, wow, this is a guy I'd just love to meet in person. And I hope someday we do get to meet. But listening to you now and having read your book, you are very, I just love the way you express yourself. You're very artistic, I find. You're poetic, your expressions. You have so much insight, and I love the way that you have reflected on your life. I think myself, having experienced so much trauma, I kind of have gotten caught up, and it's kind of robbed me of a certain capacity to be able to slow down and really reflect. So I really, really value this work, this deep work that you've done. I have two big pages of notes here that I've taken as I've read. And I have to say that chapter 10, where you raise all these questions that you had that you were going to bring to your therapist, I made a note to myself, I've got to go back because those can be a guide for me because I have a lot of the same questions. So I just see a lot of parallels. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I see a lot of parallels between your life and mine, even though our journeys have been different. So just really, I've looked forward to this evening, and I'm so happy that I got here and that you're here, and Julie, and that you've done such a beautiful job in inviting David to share his story. So thank you both.
Thank you, Michelle. A
Thank you,
beautiful
Michelle.
testament to your receiving of David's David's gift and the gift of you being here with us. Thank you. River, I see your hand.
Hey, David and
Hey, River.
everyone. I wanted to say thank you for this Zoom talk, book talk. Thank you for the book. I skimmed through it this afternoon in preparation for coming. I definitely need to go back and give it a more thorough read before the next time I see you. We share a lot of similarities in our stories. And I remember one time giving you a hug and we were both crying and I said, we almost missed this. We almost missed all of this. And we've both become writers in the last part of our journeys that brought us to today. And when I get scared or I worry about my eternal future in those big, scary ways that we were taught to be afraid of when we were little, um, I have found this really comforting. It's a translation of Psalm 23 written by John Terpstra, who's a Hamilton-based poet, and it's the camping edition. So it references things like canoes and tin cups and whatnot. And I'll just read you the last couple stanzas as a hope and a blessing for us and all our queer siblings. And I will dwell with my friends inside the tent of my wilderness guide and my trek companion forever, and the circle will be unbroken around the campfire, and there will be no more pain or sorrow on all your holy mountain or in the streets of this city, and we'll sit on logs and tree stumps, wrapped with joy, listening to the sounds of creation restored, singing folk songs, gazing into the Pentecostal flames. Thanks for letting me be here with you, David.
Thank you for being here. And if you can, I think a couple people have been asked if you could put the name of the book and the author in the chat. Others would love to be able to get hold of that book.
Thank you for sharing, River. That was very beautiful. And there's some messages of love, David, in the chat. I hope you have a chance to read them and let them resonate in your bones. If there's anybody else in the room that has any questions, comments, compliments for David, now is the time. Denny.
Hey, David. So, yeah, once again, I feel very fortunate where I was raised in a church environment, at least, that always truly loved me for who I was, no matter what the outside world told me. But it's been a great honor and a pleasure working with you at Affirm, and I look forward to hanging out some more.
Thanks, Denny.